This episode is brought to you by Cool Cars Engineering, your #1 source for all your hydraulic needs. 2 months, guys. 2 months since I made my last video. But I'm back out in the garage today making another video for the Gym City Welding YouTube channel. Nope, that ain't gonna work. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been 2 months, guys, since I made a video. 2 long months. And it's been a long winter for me. Got a lot to tell you about what's going on with the car, what's going on with the channel, and everything else that's going on with Gym City Welding. Also, today we're going to be assembling a hydraulic pump. So if you're new to the game or just haven't built one or put one together in a while, then this is going to be a great episode for you because I'm going to show you the ins and outs of putting together a hydraulic pump. So all that and more on this episode. Stay tuned. Okay, so like I was saying, it's been a long winter for me here at Gym City Welding. Very, very busy, but it's also been very good. So a lot of folks checking out the channel for the first time, tuning in. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Do me a favor, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel and helps out the algorithm so folks like yourself can pick up on what we're doing here at Gym City Welding. So what have I got done to the car? Believe it or not, I was actually able to get some work done over the wintertime. It wasn't as much as I had hoped, but it was definitely a start. And now that the weather's getting warmer out, I can have the garage door open and finally get back to what's going on the car. I've also been able to do quite a bit of A-arms for guys. Some folks have hit me up on some A-arms, and I was able to get those done and get those shipped out. So thank you to all of you at home who are supporting Gym City Welding on the fabrication side of things. So what have I got done to the car? Let me flip this around and I'll show you what I've been working on. All right, guys, so she's still parked in her same spot as she was before, but where the changes are, it's actually going to be on the inside of the car. So you have to forgive me. I can't even remember the last video I made where I left off on the floor pan portion. But as you can see, I've got the rear under the passenger seat area just kind of temporarily in place using those Klinkos like we showed before on one of those earlier videos. I had to make some pretty extensive rust repair on the rocker panels. As you can see, I had to do quite a bit underneath the floor pan over there. And then I've had to do some up here, and I've still got that area right there to replace. But I was able to replace this entire rocker, or excuse me, this cross brace in one piece. My other one was completely shot, and it was rusted out here. This whole area was completely gone. So that's all new steel, hand fabricated, as well as that one, and then I got an area back here in the corner that I've had to replace. So still quite a bit of work to go, but at least this pan is in place for the mock-up, and I can continue on with the rest of the floor. This is just like some kind of like PR15, the black, and then the gray is actually weld-through primer. So when I go to put the actual floor pan in, I will already have those surfaces prepped. And so may I ask, well, why would you go ahead and paint those if you're never going to see them? And that's kind of my idea, is that it's a little bit of, insurance and protection for down the road. So like I was saying, I've got that spot way back there. You can barely see it, but I really need to tackle that stuff when I pull the body off the frame, because let's be honest, it's hard as can be to get underneath that part of the dash. And I'm not as young as I once was. So that's a little difficult for me. But, some progress is better than no progress. So at least I'm getting to that point in the project. So the plans are to still pull this body off the chassis. That way I can prep everything for the full floor pan. I like to say that's coming soon, but to be honest with you, it just depends on when I can get that done. A very good friend of mine purchased a lift recently, so he's going to be doing the installation for that. So hopefully that'll make things a lot easier on him and me when we're going to raise the body back off the frame. What else is new? I've got some merch in the works. I've been working on some hats. Of course, I still got my stickers like always, and I'm working on t-shirts as well. So you see the hat. If a guy's interested in a hat, sound off below in the comments. Let me know. Mesh or snapback, and depending on what everybody says, depends on what kind of stuff I'm going to make. I did pick up some additional parts for the Impala, so let me set you down and I'll grab those now. Okay, so one of the big purchases that I made over the winter wasn't actually as big as it probably could have been, but big for me nonetheless. I got a new repop core support. So this is correct to 64s, probably bolt on to 63s without much modification. But I actually found it on Craigslist of all places, and the guy that I got it from bought it for a project and never used it. So he made me a killer deal on it, and I'm very excited to use it. I was hoping to save my factory one, but the more I got to looking at this thing, the more I realized it's a little too far gone for me. I think somebody's hooked a chain around that portion at one time and bent it pretty good, and then the passenger side mount where the battery would go is kind of rusted out on the mounts. So when the time comes, I'll be pulling the front end and installing this guy. And I'm hoping to actually be purchasing the glass pretty soon too. Not that I'm anywhere close to needing the glass, but it's nice to have that kind of stuff for down the road when I'm ready. It's a big expense, big purchase, so kind of buy it now and kind of sit on it till I'm ready. And one of the other reasons for ordering it now or close to now is these guys right here. When you buy the new glass kit, they have to have that as a core, that window frame, and actually the channel portion that comes, down through here, that's backwards. And anyways, so they got to have that to re-chrome, to refurbish, and so that takes time. Whether it's a swap out or if they do them one at a time, I'm not really sure, but there is a core charge for that. So just be careful of that, guys, when you go to purchase glass. So on today's episode, we're going to do a pump build. It's just a basic competition pump, nothing super exotic. It's more, kind of like what everybody would have on a basic street setup. So I'm really excited about that. I haven't put a pump together in a long time, so this is kind of going to be new for me as well because it's just been so long. Stick around and let's throw a pump together. All right, so we're going to go ahead and open up our package. This should be just a basic street pump. I've actually got plans for using this on the car eventually. I'm thinking about doing something kind of unique this summer. So like you go to these cruise-ins, you go to these car shows, you always see like a finished car, which is great, right? That's what we're all there for. But I'm kind of thinking outside the box. It's going to take me a while to get this car to a point of completion, or at least the point to where I can drive it to the event. So knowing that, I'm thinking about when I pull the body off the chassis to do the body work, I'm going to have a whole exposed frame, engine, transmission, a suspension. And I thought, I could take that to some events, let some people see the work in progress, and probably utilize this pump on that rolling chassis, just kind of something to articulate up and down when I'm at the show, and kind of let kids see what it's all about. So anyways, that's my plan. We'll see if that happens or not, but for the time being, that's kind of the direction I'm going. So I'm going to get all this unboxed, and then we'll talk about the individual components and stuff for the pump itself. So here we go. Okay, so I kind of got everything laid out here on the workbench. Put something down soft so I don't mess up any of the parts because they are aluminum and I don't want to scratch them up. But I've also got some of the tools that you're going to need to help assemble this pump. I do have a torque wrench. That's mainly recommended for when it's time to bolt the pump head onto the block, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. And then we have two different types of tape. when it comes to taping up fittings. Some guys prefer Blue Monster. If you've never heard of this, it's available at your home centers or your pipe outfitter places. And then there's also just your regular standard plumber's tape. I think today we're going to use the Blue Monster. So if you're interested in that, there you go. Look for that. And it's really good stuff. A lot of guys swear by it. So for that, with that being said, I've already kind of got the pump head onto the block. Now nothing's bolted down. Basically just wanted to talk about a couple of key points. Underneath the pump head is an O-ring. You need to make sure the O-ring is inside the block. That's very important. Next is you want to make sure that this port and this port is pointing down to the bottom of the block. Okay, so when it go around to the front side to look at the pump, you got your pressure and your return. You notice there's no holes on the top side. So that's important. Also something to take note is you typically want to break these in, prime these before bolting them to the block. At least, that's how it used to be. I'm sure that really hasn't changed very much. But you can do that with just a simple drill on the end of the shaft of the pump head. Allow fluid to turn through the pump head and get broken in and pressurized and all that good stuff. So yeah, basically, I just got this sitting on here. You want to hand start all these bolts. You do not want to ram these down without hand starting them first. So that's pretty much number one. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so now you got your pump head bolted to the block. So one of the most important things you can do is actually set the torque setting correctly from the pump head to the block itself. And the best way to do that, other than using the old till your elbow pops, is actually get yourself a torque wrench. If you don't have one, you can pick these up at Harbor Freight pretty cheap, or you can rent one from your local auto parts store. Typically, from what my memory serves me correctly, I think the torque value is between 20 and 25. Some may say over that, I'm not really sure, but 20 and 25 always did good for me and what I was doing. So the best way to do this is if you have yourself a vise, you can take yourself a piece of angle iron, just like this, and you can actually bolt the piece of angle iron directly to the bottom of the block itself, and then you can chuck this in the vise. That way you have something nice, sturdy to hold on to when you're actually pulling and doing the torquing on the pump head itself. Now, I've gone a step further and I've actually made a pump stand to help illustrate what we're doing here as far as putting this together. So I don't expect you to have this or something like this. This is way overkill, but it's designed to be on a 45. That way it kind of helps illustrate better on camera what it is that I'm doing. But remember, a piece of angle iron, a couple holes drilled in it, run some bolts through it, and put it in a vise, and you'll be good for what you're doing at home. Okay, so next what you want to do is you want to take your torque wrench, you want to have the 3/8 adapter and your 1/2 inch socket. Now, if you never used one of these or haven't seen one before, they're really, really simple to use. Right here you have your torque in foot-pounds, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, and then 30, 50, 70, 90, 110, 130, 150. And this dial here actually turns, and this is an additional 5 foot-pounds each notch all the way around. So the way I like to torque things down is I will start out at 10 foot-pounds, and then I'll work my way up to 25 foot-pounds total. So I've already got this set for 10. I've already got the bolts tightened down, so we'll go ahead and torque those now. Do it in a cross pattern. Now I'll go up 5 more foot-pounds. Excuse me, 10 more foot-pounds, sorry. Now we'll finish out at the 25. Okay, now we're fully torqued down. We can take everything apart with our torque wrench. It's important, make sure you take tension off of your torque wrench. You don't want to leave this under load because it can actually wear out the spring that's inside of the torque wrench itself. So just make sure you take tension off when you're done with that. And go ahead and put this stuff away. That way we don't lose anything. Okay, so next, you want to take the tank itself, and sometimes when you get your pump, it may already have the seal on it. Sometimes it may not. Excuse me, not seal, but O-ring. So you want to put some oil on the O-ring, put some oil on the outside rim of the tank itself. That way it helps go on and everything's nice and smooth with no hiccups. So we'll just kind of work that around the seal area. Okay. Sometimes these are a bear to get on because they're brand new and sometimes they're not. But let's see what we got here. So we kind of want to line up the holes. Start with the bottom on. Guide it with our thumbs, push with our shoulder. Try that again. There's the top. And next would be the bottom. There we go. Just like that. So we take our rag, wipe this down. Of course, we're getting it all messy and oily because of oil all over our fingers, but that's okay. So you guys, you get the idea at home. Pretty straightforward. That's how you install a pump head and a tank. At this point, we can go ahead and install our backing plate and our tank rods and get those ready to bolt down. All right, so up next, you got your tank rods and your backing plate. Pretty self-explanatory. You've got a nylon locking nut on each side, and then you've got your backing plate, and there's many different styles, many different shapes. Just be careful of that. You don't want to bend these ears by over-tightening. So just be careful of that when you're installing those. But installation is pretty simple. You just unscrew one side of the locking nut, insert the rod through the backing plate, put on the back of the tank itself, and feed through the pump, and then start the nut on the other side of the pump, and then you'll repeat that process 3 more times. You'll come in with your 7/16 wrench, 7/16 socket, and just tighten those down snug. You don't want them overly tightened, so just be careful when you do that. Pretty easy. So now we've got our backing plate fully installed on our pump. So next up, we can install the competition motor, which is what I'm using for this particular pump, but you also have street pump or motors available too as well, black case and chrome case. In this case, I'm using the chrome housing. So one thing we want to talk about when it comes to brand new motors out of the box. You'll get a box kind of like this, should be wrapped up in some kind of paper or cardboard, something like that. Carefully unwrap that. And we'll want to set this on our workbench here. Okay. Now, this is a competition motor which has a vented bearing end cap. Again, many different styles depending on what kind of pump you're building and how radical crazy you want to go. But this is pretty standard for a competition pump, motor. So one thing you want to take note though is when you get these brand new out of the box, pay close attention to the back side. This is where it's going to have nuts that are locking in place, holding these bolts, which pass all the way through the armature casing and holds this together. This is 3-piece. 1, 2, 3, and then the center you got your armature. So technically it's a 4-piece, but for the sake of this video, we're just talking about the outside of the motor itself. So you want to take your bolts and back these off, unscrew those nuts. That way you can bolt this directly on to the block itself. But before we get to that, something we want to talk about. Do not forget this. This is very important because if you do not have this in your pump, it's not going to work. And that would be your key, your spline key. So this goes on the back side of your motor, and it runs to the inside of the pump head itself, inside of the tank. So again, if you don't have this, it's not going to spin the pump head. You're not going to be able to build pressure inside the pump. So you want to make sure that you have this installed. You've got coarse and then fine. The coarse goes on the electric motor side, and then you can insert that into your pump. So pretty straightforward. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that you can bolt this onto the pump itself. Just remember, you need to keep these 3 pieces together, otherwise you'll split the casing from the armature inside, and then you're going to have a lot of fun putting it back together. So just keep that in mind. You can clock this in 2 different ways. You can have, so these 2 bolts go on these 2 portions of the pump head right here. You can have this facing up. You can have facing on the right or facing on the left. In this case, I'm just going to face it on the right out of usability, accessibility. And you insert the key into the pump head, and then you can actually hold this in place while keeping pressure on the bolt and just kind of turn it until the bolt falls into place. That way you know you're lined up with the bolt holes. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. Okay, next up you want to insert your check valve into your pump. Put your Blue Monster on, or whichever tape you choose to use. Just remember, the Blue Monster recommends 3 complete turns before you snip your tape off. Always want to make sure that the check ball valve is down towards the pump itself. We don't want that facing up. We want that facing down in the block. So something to keep in mind when you're putting this together. So all you got to do is start that. We will take our wrench, tighten that up. Okay, pretty tight. And then we can actually take our delta dump and go ahead and start it on the check valve itself. Next is we have our actual hose fitting for our return hose. So we're going to go ahead and put some tape on that and get that started. Okay. And then final for the dump on the dump side is we'll want to tape this up, and then this will be out to our cylinder. So this will be the connection for the hose to the cylinder. So we'll tape that up too. Okay, so next up, we're going to insert our fitting into the block. Of course, everything's already taped up. Then you're going to want to unscrew the slowdown portion from the valve itself, from the slowdown valve. Start that. can restart. Of course, you can reseal these threads with sealant tape. Start that. Get that nice and tight. And then last but not least is the actual return hose fitting. So we'll get that guy started on there. And then of course, last but not least, take your return hose. We're going to start that on the dump assembly itself. Something to take note, these are tapered fittings for a tapered internal on the hose, so no need to tape these up. Just get those guys started on there. Just like that. And then let's turn this guy just a little bit more. And then we'll start this on the fitting. Okay. And I'm not going to super tighten those down, guys. This is just for mock-up purposes to show you what we're doing here. And then, of course, the last thing to top it off will be the tank plug after you've filled with hydraulic fluid. Okay, everyone, so that's going to wrap up today's episode for building the hydraulic pump. I hope some of this information was useful to you. And as always, I appreciate each and every one of you that tunes in to watch this channel and to watch me go through this whole process and in a lot of ways kind of reteaching myself some of this knowledge that it's been so long since I've done something like this. So this has been really cool, really fun, and thank you for sticking through it with me. So before I cut you loose, though, I got a quick builder spotlight. His name is Jason Bailey, and Jason Bailey has a really, really rad truck. It's called, the name of the truck is China White. He's owned the truck since 1993. It's a 1990 Mazda B2200. I've always loved those trucks. They make awesome lowriders, great mini trucks, really good hoppers, and dancers as well. Let's see, in 1993, it had its first major custom setup done by Stanley Staton. If that name sounds familiar to some of you, that might be because that is the original owner builder of the Hillbilly Hopper. So the Hillbilly Hopper is a legendary truck in Louisville, Kentucky area, and is currently hopefully going to be making a comeback in 2024. But with Jason's truck, this had the setup done by Stanley, and that's the setup that's still in the truck to this day. So really, really rad, cool setup, very unique, one of a kind piece to have. The current paint job was done in 1998, and the frame itself was painted right around. I believe he said right around that same time. Looks like he's been working on the truck. It sat for quite a while in some storage. You know, life happens, things get in the way, but he's bringing that truck back out. Looking forward to seeing that this year with a refreshed interior. But the majority of the truck will be 90s original. So, man, my hat's off to you. That's really cool to have a project that long. You know, a truck that you've spent that much time with, and it's pretty special to have. So kudos to you, Jason Bailey. I can't wait to see the truck in person. Looking at the pictures here, it's absolutely beautiful. I love the chrome trim that's on the bottom. That's very, when I was a younger kid, like mini trucking days, like early stuff, I remember seeing that stuff in like the back of the magazines, and the chrome grills and the white like marker lights and stuff like that, the clear lights. Looking at the oil pan, oh my God, or excuse me, gas tank. That's amazing. Love the pinstriping. Even the drive shaft's done. Incredible stuff. And looking at the rear spring setup, that's really cool. I love that mini truck and stuff. And the bridge is really cool. Very nice. Very good quality build. Love all the attention to detail on the front suspension. These trucks make amazing hoppers. And looking at the front suspension now, I think I understand why. It's really nice, really cool setup there. And then looking at pictures when he's taking the body off the frame, that's really rad. Look at the chromed out accessories on the engine. That's pretty cool. Love seeing that kind of stuff. And then looking at it as it's being painted, with the frame being painted and detail on the engine. I mean, this, from a builder standpoint, man, my hat's off to you. This is really exceptional. Very nice. Love the colors. And looking at that setup there, that OG setup by Stanley, that is so cool. So he's going to have this vehicle, or excuse me, this truck back out in 2024. So if you're in the Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky area, please keep your eyes open for this truck to hit the show circuit. I cannot wait to see it in person. And if I'm lucky, maybe Jason will let me sit in it or something like that. That'd be pretty rad. So, um, Jason, thank you so much for submitting your pictures, brother. And look forward to seeing this in person. Uh, to anyone out there that's got a vehicle that you would like to have a builder spotlight done, really simple. All you got to do is hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. You can find the link on my page. Um, it's my link tree that will send you to all those different accounts, and just private message me and tell me who you are, tell me what kind of vehicle you got, and I'd love to feature it on the channel. So again, great episode. I appreciate all of you for sticking around. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys on the very next episode of Gem City Welding. And until then, take care. God bless.